the time image, he actually do this history in which way? This is a history that is constructed through this heroic life of engaged subject. This is why somebody said, don't talk about Godard. Godard and all the others are having the main point. But maybe my proposal will be the third one, going in relation to this, and actually the third position is to found in the material development of history the potential. So actually to materialize, to repoliticize history in itself. So not just the lived, not just the heroic brands, but actually the questioning of history as such to give this material possibility. And what is this? I will make just a thesis that actually this will be not just to diagnose the social pathology. So this is not just to say everything is falling apart. The social pathology of the moment, also in a certain storytelling, but to actually make a move that I call to re-instantiate, so that means to re-instantiate political subjectivities, where both terms are open, political subjectivities, and also this re-instantiate that can be seen as putting again into working condition. This means re-instantiate the political subjectivities. Also this means to historize, as I already presented, precisely the disciplines in which enter. That means not to relegate them to a dead history, but actually to see how in that history, in this kind of universal, is possible to see this social antagonism, this cut, and actually to produce this materiality of history. And the political act, it's a risk, simply to say. Political act is not acting. It's actually a risk of positioning, or actually also the gesture that is more coming near to this Western condition with no meta level of guarantee. So it's no any garant. The garant is that we actually have to, when we make the decision of appropriation, are we working with successful topic, this is something of the risk. The risk is open to us, and this is this political act. So one of the main points that I propose is actually going back to this third point of this materiality of history as being the third element, not the life description, not the big names and brands, but the materiality of the history in itself that has to be actually struggled out in terms of seeing these cuts inside. And now we will go to the third part, in which I will try to show what is actually this context in which this history actually function, and also to propose one of the differences, to also, because of these divisions, to also in certain way historize memory as such. So memory is already something that is part of another system. And history is the one that, and these two categories are having actually a different, let's say, weight. So we wait for the diagram, and maybe while we are waiting, I say how this diagram happened. Being invited in different, to have different lectures, and also to teach in different schools and so on, I was presenting the work. This diagram came out from a process. I hope it's visible. Can you read? Yeah. Also all Santiago Lopez Petit, all the names. Are you seeing? No. So we will actually we will just put down this. Let me see. So we need the names and what is written here. So we need light, less light. Or we will put, because it's really, it's quite good, clear, so we will put maybe a smaller if it's maybe it's too big to concentrate, and it's otherwise I will explain. Okay, so better. So I explain what is missing here. That is not visible. It's only 3 places. Here is the material foundations and the non-material discourses. It's this part.
I'm very sorry.
Yes, and then, okay, it's coming. Yes, as material foundations and as not material discourses. And then up, just to if you can go on that, so I will go from turborealism. Here, it's very important references. So it's George Agamben, Their Life, this Biopolitics, Santiago Lopez Petit, the Spanish theoreticians. I will explain now briefly what this means. And up is Achille Mbembe, who coined the term of necropolitics. So if we go as in a watch from this point of turbo-realism. I take this case because, as I said, the most problematic point when you talk about Europe is that it's not possible to talk about East and West. And this is right, actually. We cannot talk about East and West. Because other concepts of differentiation, division, simply to say of racialization, hegemonical power is actually entering the vocabulary. And we have to grasp this. So instead, actually, of East and West, it's possible to talk about really this social and political context. And ex-Yugoslavia is one of the best cases. It's precisely a former Eastern European country that actually showed all these changes pretty earlier. Already immediately after the fall of the Berlin Wall, not to speak before of the fall of the Berlin Wall, when the things were already there in germs, but they were not present. So if we start with turbo realism, and I say also that one of the possible way of thinking why history is brought in, I will even say that in the 21st century that we live exists a special passion for history. So what you was talking about the 20th century as the passion for the real. It was like a condition. And the 19th century was seen as the passion for a certain, what is called prophetic character. The 19th century was announcing some prophecy, what will going on. But my thesis will be that actually the 21st century presents a passion for history, not anymore the passion for the real. In which way? We see unbelievable construction of history. Just yesterday when we went to the museum, there was a special room with a history where we see, I don't know, the new lineage of Armenian past. And this passion for history is going on in every of the former post-socialist countries, but also is going on in the so-called first capitalist world, but in a different way. So this is why we start with turbo-realism, and we actually take this turbo-realism as being really the condition in which we can discard about former Eastern European space, and we enter the turbo-realism with another term. And this term is what is called there as turbo-fascist processes. So turbo-fascism is a process that is actually applied to the whole territory of former Eastern Europe. But don't think that this is just a specialty for us here in all our former Eastern Europe, because the characterization, and I hope is readable, and it's called postmodern fascism. It's what is going on in the former West. So we are actually working with these two kinds of fascism. And now the question is how it's possible to use a historical term. Because this is one of the main questions. how is actually possible to state that actually the transitional space of post-socialism toward a neoliberal capitalism, in which we are not yet, but we will come after being civilized, is possible to term a turbo-fascist processes. I make a reference to a feminist, and she's coming from Serbia. And her name is Žarana Papić. It's unfortunately late Žarana Papić, and she already in the 90s, and when the fall of the Berlin Wall is going on, actually said, let's talk about the condition in Serbia. She's speaking specifically about Serbia, but it's actually now a condition for all former post-socialist countries. She said, let's talk about turbo-fascism. And she said something else. We are aware that this is a historical term, but actually some traits of this historical term in our theoretical work can be used for the situation that is going on today. She is saying, making a reference to feminist theoretical discourses, that actually we can think about a shifting concept. And she is saying, for example, such a shifting concept is, and I think is super good for Armenia, she is talking about shifting patriarchy. So she is saying we can talk about patriarchy as a shifting concept. And let me make some points that I think when I will read this, we will see really the condition of life in Armenia in this present moment, and also in Slovenia and Serbia and so on. So she's saying we can go back to big terms if they accurately describe certain political realities. And thinking about ex-Yugoslavia in the 90s, and specifically in Serbia, I quote, she started, Serbian fascism has its own concentration camps, its own systematic representation of violence against others, its own cult of the family and cult of the leader, an explicitly patriarchal structure, a culture of indifference toward the exclusion of the other. That we heard here. This is some groups, but we have some agenda. This women stuff, lesbian, gays, this is something else. A closure of society, I go on with Žarana Papić, a closure of society upon itself and upon its own past. It has a taboo on empathy and a taboo on multiculturalism. It has powerful media acting as proponents of genocide. It has a nationalist ideology. Just think, this is our reality. It has an epic mentality of listening to the world and obeying authority. The prefix turbo refers to the specific mixture of politics, culture, mental powers, and the pauperization of life. And this is actually what we are living in these post-socialist countries. The mixture of rural and urban, pre-modern and post-modern. If you think the museum yesterday, really something unbelievable in the midst of, let's say, and something similar is also in Slovenia. Pop culture and heroines, real and virtual, mystical and normal. In this term, despite its naive or innocent appearances, Žarana Papić is saying, there is still fascism in its proper sense. If we read about all these elements and we actually put them forward in this neoliberal turbo time in which we are living. Like all fascism, turbo-fascism includes and celebrates a pejorative renaming, alienation, and finally the removal of the other. Others means nothing. And it's actually true. LGBT population is horror. I mean, people are beaten, they are completely evacuated, or everything is seen like a private story. But they are not part of the heteronormative, patriarchal, shifting patriarchal structures, and also the institutions. Who is leading, who is speaking, who is asked to do. That this turbo-fascist reality of this space is also connected with this change. Because the change is from nation state, I hope you see, to what actually I call war state. This is also a characteristic of the change that happened after 2001. This is developed with relation to Santiago Lopez Petit, now a very actual theoretician from Spain, who is saying that the old or former imperial capitalist colonial states, those who actually call themselves former Western European states, actually transformed in war states. What this means? That the nation state lost all the prerogatives of sovereignty. All what is possible to do today in nation state, if you are not a war state, is actually to have this attachment to culture and art that is becoming almost a biopolitical machine. Institutions will survive, people will not, because the pauperization, the immiserization and so on is going on. And history is part of evacuation. Here I wrote, memory is not a matter of sentimentalism and heroism, that is also memory as something that is part already of the biopolitical, and history is already a product of the hegemonic powers, because it's all the time negotiated, is rewritten, put up new, renegotiated, actually more or less is evacuated, erased, and so on. So the consequences of this is that the process of turbo neoliberal fascism also coincides with the general relation in neoliberal global capitalism. Because we see that this it's maybe a status for the former or post-socialist countries, but as I said, a war state works with postmodern fascism. So there is also a specific way of fascism that is also historical, because the turbo-fascist processes are already historical in relation to the history of capitalism. And the consequence of this passage and of this transformation in neoliberal capitalism is history evacuated, privatized, and also the formation of the space through both states and through postmodern fascism of depoliticization. Depoliticization is this cut with politics. This normalization is one of the main points. And politics every day or different sorts are put on the top. The implications are, as it's in the diagram, that we have two other modes, not only the modes of curating that is attacked, because it's now performing as social, but is actually evacuating, but the modes of life, something that really matters today, it's under division. And also, as I say, the form of state. We have nation state and war state after 2001, and also after 2001, because this is the moment when neoliberal global capitalism entered the space, we have the division of the mode of life. Agamben is right. The division of life is between naked life and the modes of life. Everything what matters is actually today the modes of life, and they are completely depoliticized. All is about style. Also politics is a kind of a style. And naked life is more or less also a mode of life. How you are poor, you have nothing to eat. We heard some stories. But practically after 2001, any relation to other analyses that we cannot tell, we don't know because they are not formulated in the center. And I make a reference to Achille Mbembe and his book on text on necropolitics that was written in 2003. So in 2003, Achille Mbembe from South Africa, being there a professor but a researcher in Africa, is writing the text Necropolitics. Practically, this means a division, and I hope it's possible to see that is a passage. So turbo-fascism in postmodern fascism, we are there to come, and we will come very soon, but also from biopolitics to necropolitics, and that means this is affecting the mode of life. And what this means? Very simple and very short, because I have to finish. If we think, how we can think about biopolitics? Of course, we make a reference to Foucault. Without Foucault, we don't have biopolitics. Agamben is very important because it's actually making a point of view of the change of biopolitics in the Western system, this division of life within. But if we think and we want to have like a brand, some kind of a small gadget, biopolitics is actually, from my research, and I coined this, make, live, and let die. Make, live, and let die. This is the shortest possible definition of biopolitics. Because biopolitics started in the 70s, and it was all about welfare states. Make, live, super possibilities in the West. If you were a citizen, make, die, everything around. Nobody knows what is going about the second world. The third world is out of the picture. Nobody talks about these things. This is why we are a discovery after the fall of the Berlin Wall. We are almost an archaeological site, digging. Because nobody cares about this. But in 2003, because the 2001, because actually the war machine that is again engaged after 2001, because of the global immiseration that come visible with 2008, and Membek, who is making the analysis of Africa in 2003 that is concerned of nobody, and is writing actually a book in 2001, where he is also saying it's not about colonialism, it's about of the status of Africa as a post-colony. This is a big difference, because colonialism led a present condition from history, thinking about the post-colony and thinking about the matrix of coloniality. We are completely here and now, as it's said by Heidegger, here, in this present moment. So Membek present that it's a new kind of a division, that exists the war machines going on around, and it's actually the war machine in the literal sense, but also in the mass pulverization, and especially making the analysis of Africa. He said biopolitics is not enough. We have to have a new term. And necropolitics means what? Necro is death, like bio is life. Politics is managing, and managing is one of the main terms of governmentality. As I said in the call for the curatorial project in Bogota, they want to talk about how you manage structures. So managing is the term that defines all our practices. And if I put the thing short, because it's here to understand these positions, I said, okay, if Foucault said, make, live, and let die, I will propose for Agamben another shortage. And it will be let, live, and make, die. And the difference is really obvious. In the biopolitical previous, before 2001, you have make, live, welfare states. And everybody else is just let. It's no intervention. It's just your business. You know, they kill this totalitarianism, okay. This is business of some world that doesn't exist. It's on the other part of the curtain. Or Africa, what's going on. Nobody cares. But here, with necropolitics, we see that this make, live is actually going to a process of abandoning. Let, live. And this is also what's going on in the first capitalist world. If you have money, differentially, but in the former Eastern European countries, it's definitely like this. You can survive if you have resources. Otherwise, the social is completely necropolitical. That means you are just let. You can live, you are actually let die. And if it's necessary, he's saying, as we see the war machine, then people will be made to die. But why? Because of this process actually of allocation of money, processes of making the extract of surplus value to the engagement of the war machine. And we know reconstruction, things, all the processes, there's a whole machinery behind them. So, in this context, we have actually a paradoxical situation. First, biopolitics and necropolitics live one near the other. We rub our shoulders. Here is necropolitics, biopolitics together. We are in this space. We don't know, but the things can be differentiated. And they are not differentiated by adjectives, by conditions of life, by possibilities of life. Secondly, actually, if anything has a sense, because what is the case? Art and all these institutions, all what we do has actually the prerogative of biopolitics. Control, safeguarding, working, and so on, because the life, this social space, is completely necropolitical. You survive if you can, nobody, it's abandonment, the state, and so on, no money, everything is privatized, so it's really an interesting situation. And this is why I said they can call about social curating. Because it's in the form, in the biopolitical already, that is becoming now not a mode of life, but a mode of culture. While the necropolitical is actually the mode of life, this social disintegration. So, because of this, this is this proposal also of control, nation-state to war-state. War-state, as I said, it's very important passage, because we see this with this Snowden. War-state means control, means actually a new reconfiguration of the nation-state, because nation-state after 1989 has no sovereignty. There's no way. If we think about all the Hague Tribunal, this was never the case. You were killing it in your field, in your garden. Nobody were coming from outside, because the sovereignty of the nation-state was actually the one that was almost established not in other big things, but it was established in 1885 at the Berlin Conference, when they actually, the big powers are taking the map of Africa and are just making with the ruler what are the borders of the state. This is why when you look at Africa map, it's unbelievable that you have a line. You have to ask yourself how this was done historically, not as a memory. Historically, it was done in 1885 at the Berlin Conference. So the war state is actually the ones who are now keeping and controlling and organizing the space. The nation state is actually only taking care of this national stuff. It's up to you. It's nobody care. So, because of this, we are coming actually to the complete end and making a reference to the racist state. I say that in this passage, because it's not a clear cut, exists actually this third element. And this third element is the racist state. That is in between these two, the nation state and the war state. In which way? It's making the refiguration what means citizens. Who are the citizens? Who are these actually today political subjectivities in reference to the non-citizens? And definitely final, why memory, not memory, and actually history? Because in these relations, in this kind of reorganizing the way of understanding the proposal, it's the coming out from research, and it's a proposal, but also it's something that is actually coming out of a certain wall in the theory. This is not just a neutral writing. No, it's an engagement, and it's a decision, it's a risk. It's also a difference between memory and history. Memory is actually becoming a biopolitical, anthropological condition. Something that is really part of this. While history is actually, I will say, the new paradigmatic moment of the necro-capitalist moment of neoliberal global capitalism in which we are living in. Because we are really living not anymore in any kind of capitalism, but in the necro-capitalist neoliberal global capitalism. Okay, thank you very much. You have to make the... Right, now you were weak and until now you were long.
You can stay here. I don't have to.
Huh? I want equal treatment.
Okay. Kas gaan dan kat ամփոփել։ Ուրեմն հիմնական թեզը, որով սկսեցի լույթը Վարիժը, կուրատորությունը որպես քաղաքական ոգեշնչման գործունեություն, այդ թեզն էր, երբ մասնավորապես սկսեց խոսել սոցիալական կուրատորությունից եւ ներկայումս դրա գաղափարաբանական ու քաղաքական հետևանքների մասին։ Ինչ է սոցիալական կուրատորությունը կամ սոցիալական համադրությունը որպես պերֆորմատիվ ակտ, այսինքն երբ որ մենք այսօր այս պահին կոնկրետ այս ժամանակի մեջ հարց ենք տալիս, թե հարցադրում ենք սոցիալական կուրատորությունը, ապա նաև պետք է հարցադրենք, թե ինչու ենք բարձրացնում այդ հարցը։ Երբ է այն պահը, երբ համադրությունը իրեն հռչակում է որպես սոցիալական եւ ինչպես է այն այսօր կոնցեպտավորվում։ Ուրեմն սա հիմնական թեզն է եւ այս թեզից եկող վերլուծական այդպես թելերը վերաբերում են ժամանակակից արվեստի հիմնարկային ինստիտուցիոնալ կարգավիճակին գլոբալ կապիտալիզմի պայմաններում եւ երբ արվեստի հիմնարկ ենք ասում, նկատի չունենք սոսկ արվեստի արտադրության ոլորտները, այլ նաեւ եւ հիմնականում քննադատությունը, տեսությունը, այսինքն մի ռեժիմ, իսկ այդ ռեժիմը այսօր ուրվագծվում է գերմասնավորեցմամբ որպես մի իրավիճակ։ Գերմասնավորեցում եւ գումարի աղբյուրն ինքնին փոխվել է եւ այս սրա հետևանքով առաջացել են այդպես մոնոպոլիզացնող դաշտը կուրատորական խմբեր եւ դոկումենտա 13-ի օրինակն էլ վառ օրինակ է, երբ կուրատորական խումբը Կանադայի Բանֆ քաղաքում այդպես հանդիպում է որպես էլիտար մի խմբակ քննարկելու համայնքային պատկանելության նոր համայնքներ ձևավորելու այլընտրանքային տարբերակներ, բայց իհարկե սա շատ փոքր խումբ է եւ մեկ ուրիշ օրինակ է նաեւ Նյու Յորքում International Curators International Independent Curators International անկախ միջազգային կուրատորներ այդ ցանցը, որը Բոգոտայում հանդիպում է կազմակերպում կուրատորական եւ մասնակիցները այդտեղ աստեղային անուններ ես լսում, ասենք Չարլզ Էշը, Չուս Մարտինես եւ այլն, իսկ մասնակիցները պետք է $2000 վճարեն եւ միջոցներ ունենան մասնակցելու այդ հանդիպմանը։ Այսինքն հանդիպումն ինքնին որպես այդպիսին թեմա չունի, ընդամենը ցանց կազմելու համար է, բայց այս ցանցային համագործակցությունն էլ կարծես դարձել է գլոբալ կապիտալիզմի պայմաններում սոցիալական կուրատորության բովանդակությունը։ Ուրեմն Ժինիչը առաջարկում է կուրատորական Ալթուզերյան հասկացություն, այսինքն վերանայել կուրատորության պատմությունը սոցիալ-քաղաքական անտագոնիզմի պայմաններում, այսինքն կոնկրետ այս մասնագիտությունը որպես դիսցիպլին, որ պահին ինչպես եւ ինչու է առաջ եկել եւ ընդհանրապես սոցիալական կուրատորությունը ինչպես է արտադրվում որպես ռեժիմ, որտեղ սոցիալականը քողարկում է գլոբալ կապիտալիզմի շահագործումը եւ դրա ներսում եղած բաժանումները։ Այդ բաժանումները իհարկե դասակարգային, բայց նաեւ ռասայական եւ օրինակ Եվրամիության մեջ այսօր մենք այլևս ազգային պետությունների մասին չենք կարող խոսել, բայց կարող ենք խոսել ռասայական պետությունների մասին, երբ բաժանման գծերը հենց ռասայական սկզբունքներով են կատարվում, վերարտադրելով ոչ թե հետ կահութային, այլ կահութային պարադիգմը այսօր։ Եվ ընդհանրապես արվեստի ու կուրատորության այս օպերացիան համադրվում է, գործողությունը համադրվում է ժամանակակից գլոբալ կապիտալիզմի երկու ռեժիմի, կենսաքաղաքականության կամ բիոպոլիտիկայի եւ մեկ այլ տերմին այստեղ առաջ գալիս նեկրոքաղաքականություն կամ մահվան քաղաքականություն եւ եթե ասենք Ֆուկոյի հասկացությամբ բիոքաղաքականությունը, կենսաքաղաքականությունը կարող ենք այդպես սահմանել ապրեցրու ու թող որ մեռնեն կարգախոսով, այսինքն մի ռեժիմ, որտեղ կյանքը կառավարվում է, ապա նեկրոքաղաքականությունը մահվան կառավարումն է, մերձրու որպեսի ապրես։ Եվ եթե այդպես շատ կարճ եզրափակեմ, այստեղ սոցիալական կուրատորությունը հանդես է գալիս որպես հենց այս նեկրոքաղաքականության մաս։ Now we can, of course, discuss and ask questions.
Okay, here is just this postmodern fascism. All the elements are listed. What is working and what is the difference in this passage from turbo fascism, and also the question of repetition as a kind of specific mode or logic that is actually affecting precisely all this terrain that we are working, and the elements of this is the content, performative politics, and so on. Okay, so let's go.
Wait, it's a repetition of what? Of
a repetition, it's a logic.
our logic.
It's a logic that is connecting, it's a kind of a glue, connecting and it's extrapolated as a logic that actually affects directly the contemporary art or the field of culture with this differentiation. Repetition, it's how is seen contemporary art today, then this obviousness that is actually not part because it's so obvious that it's some other so to say, a point that has to be put out, and that means the logic of the content that is so normalized, and this is really interesting, that it's almost a feeling of being just nobody wants to talk about the content. In a certain way, the content is disappearing, and then the performative politics that is one that is actually taking repetition as one of the main point of performative politics, because it's actually repetition today is a key element of how the performative is functioning. So this is, but I just wanted to say it's this, for example, postmodern fascism, the sterilization of the other, evacuation of the conflict. This is what is going on at the present moment. The neutralization of the political, that is actually negotiated as, so to say, it's losing any kind of weight. Any way to talk about political, as I tried to say. But
Marina,
yes.
I have a question. I need maybe
Can
more
you-
explanation about the repetition. Why you really connect the issue of repetition with performativeness, and well, like some more words about repetition. What do you mean when you say repetition?
I use
And performativeness? Yeah, but first let me
Can you repeat the question, because I think it was not.
Yeah, for me it was not very much clear why you so much connect repetition with performative. And what is exactly for you, what is a repetition for you?
The performative, I mean the repetition in relation to the performative politics is connected with a specific way of making performances, and this is actually the reenactment. So reenactment are, and they are becoming one of the most cherished element of this performative or performances in today art. It's actually working with the element of repetition. That means it repeats in another setting certain artworks. Artists are repeating their previous works. If you think, for example, we were invoking Marina Abramović a lot. The whole work of Marina Abramović is actually to reenact a proper performance or body politics or career. So what she's doing today is just making this repetition. And you see also a lot of works that are just repeating the mode, like it is something technological, the mode of a situation, just the format of this. So this is why repetition is today connected with performative politics, because it's a specific
way, and this is reenactment. Reenactment is one of the most important, if we think about Sharon Hayes, she repeats, for example, the strategies that were used in the 60s and the 70s, where it was a direct, let's say, political demand of the question of going in a public space. Today it's just reenactment of these projects where standing in the public space with a certain poster in which actually some social demands are posed, some processes of reflection, but they are actually all part of this question of the reenactment of this something is there and now it's actually put or brought to life. So in this way, it's this repetition connected to performative politics. Because my interest was, in this diagram, to put out some elements, so to really take out something that is generalized, universalized, or put it in a narration that now is functioning actually as element of a certain logic. So it's not just a criticizing, it's not just a preoccupation, but to think about a structure that is not totalizing, because many things are left and many things are already changing the relation of memory history.
So thank you very much, Marina. Thank you very much.
Thank you for offering us this this diagram in a way to think through some of these issues. I suppose the kind of central categories are memory and history, through which to rethink the political, or history, as you say, which is the importance of historicizing the disciplines in which we enter. But I mean, do you think that, I have two questions. The first is that, do you think that history is, what is the relationship of history to memory as a kind of political engine? Because this has become, obviously, the kind of central turbo in the writing of our contemporary experience. So what is the relationship of the political relationship of memory and history, and in what moments did they become this kind of this trope? The second is, if to reinstate political subjectivity is to historicize the disciplines, then who gets to historicize the disciplines? And from which position do we enter to historicize these disciplines? Who has the agency, the legitimacy, the authorization to historicize the disciplines? Is it the academy? Is it the theoreticians from the former Eastern Bloc? Is it the theoreticians from the former Eastern Europe who identify themselves with what is it? So I think it's quite important to this kind of reflection, not in a naive way, but a critical reflection on the position of the historicizer, right? So can you perhaps reflect on that, and who gets to be now the political subject and the political agent who gets this task of historicizing?
Thanks. So it's the first part is about memory and history. I depart from the division, and I relate the status of memory and history precisely to the mode of life. We cannot actually discard of this. So the division that is proposed through a theoretical work by others who are not present, for example, in the center of this Western matrix. And I want to be clear what this means. It's very interesting that it's almost 10 years that necropolitics was coined, but in European context, practically you have almost a repetition, and every month a big conference on biopolitics. in the Western context. Until now, almost doesn't exist, from my knowledge, and I'm following any conference. Okay, Achille Mbembe is called to speak, but you don't have a conference in which this what was proposed for the African context. And I think this is very relevant if you think about Egypt now. What means the necropolitical? The social and political is completely necro. It's completely disappearing in a certain way. It's evacuated. And so it's a question of the post-colony, also of all this entanglement. But you don't have, so to call it's no, and this is also an answer to the second question, you don't have a relation to the paradigm. The paradigm stayed fixed and untouched. It's biopolitics and finished. And it's also actually Italian biopolitics, German biopolitics, but is not actually reflecting precisely what is going out of the center. It's no, besides us in the former East that do these conferences, but the matrix is, as was said, developed in the Documenta, for example, in these big places. There stays the biopolitical, and the necropolitical is completely out. And my thesis is that part of the biopolitical system of the West is also a certain process in this make-live, a process of anthropologization, of actually giving to the citizens of that states a humanity element, and to practically make the life okay, and evacuating little by little the social contradiction. Memory is actually an anthropological category that is working with all this process of storytelling, memorization. So it's, and this is very obvious. It's obvious, for example, in the whole context how the former Eastern European countries were treated, how actually it was to say your experience, but not to think about what the political, the artistic practice means in the genealogy or history of art history in the West. These are only few of such analysis. So my thesis is very simple. If we stay and take seriously the passage and the outmoded biopolitical condition for the moment that we live, and as I said, Egypt is knocking on our door. It's here. We are smelling. So the necropolitical is not even working the last 20 years, but is reproducing heavily precisely this moment. There is let live and make die. Let live for those who will actually have these possibilities in many entanglements with many political and military, let's say, connections, and make die, as we see, all the others who actually in one way context. So because of this difference, and because of this conceptual difference, so this is not just a description, but is a proposal to think our mode of life different. And this is also a change in the first capitalist world. Many are dropping out. And also the difference of citizens and non-citizens in the first capitalist world. That practically refugees, migrants, they are having no possibility. They are actually really in the necro-social. While everything is done for, let's say, for the citizen. Or those who are treated by a certain historical way in this postmodern fascism. If you are the other, you are working well, you are profiled, you are not making trouble, you are integrated, good. If not, you are actually exposed. Or in this differentiation, if you go in the public space, you are practically, you can lost your positions. Harut always, please put the diagram.
And is this
So because of this, just simply to come to the point, I made also a differentiation in these categories, memory and history. And my claim is that memory, because of this history of biopolitics, is actually an anthropological site or a paradigm that works with the biopolitics.